doing something that was completely against the code of ethics that they've laid out, then I think there should be disciplinary action taken, whether they're charged with a crime or not. Definitely, if they're charged with a violent crime, I think they should be suspended for a myriad of reasons.
As far as the, looking at, like women in this situation, do you think that, if they start suspending them right away, that women see like, oh, if this guy does me wrong and they're in a sick, twisted way, they'll be like, oh, well, I can get him suspended from the NFL. Do you think that there's some women out there that would view it that way?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think some of those women are actually in the role of the white. And I think it happens with law enforcement officers as well. They lose their gun if they have this kind of charge. And I think it gives power to, people fail to see, and I think the league is learning, and you have to be careful, and I'm sure, someone will say, like, you don't want to, I interviewed someone who's running for the No More, running the Boston Marathon for the No More organization, and she's like, well, it's really important that that we don't blame the victim, and it's like, I get that, and I would never blame a victim for like Janae, I'm not going to blame her for someone else's act of physical violence. However, it's important to know that some of these relationships do involve a cycle, and there's a honeymoon period, and then it kind of escalates, and then it goes to, it's kind of like a pressure cooker where, eventually, your top explodes, and it doesn't, and people push the envelope, and I think it's important that we all learn how to control our emotions so that we don't use those kind of, I'm going to say primitive means of getting what we want, or getting the result. But yes, I definitely think that this is something that the way the league has to take things, the same thing with the police right now, not to change it to, a topic, but the police, and, now the police, they know, like you have to, so it's just like like Greg Hardy, I think, knew that, kind of call first, and, you call first, because it's just, sometimes it's a game to people that are in these kinds of situations, and yeah, I think for some it's going to be a power shift. Mm-hmm.
Are you surprised that we haven't seen a straight to DVD or a straight to Netflix or Hulu or whatever movie about this NFL situation thus far?
You mean Ray Rice in general?
Ray Rice, really all of you look at all these, issues, Adrian Peterson, Ray Rice, Greg Hardy, all those mashed into one, and then the NFL's handling of it. I'm surprised we haven't seen a movie yet or talks of a, straight to DVD movie of this, because, it would be far more interesting than when they did.
I think, I was going to say, I think Law & Order did something where they kind of combined the Adrian Peterson and the Ray Rice case, like, into what, you got to be careful, too. Like, as much as, if they do a movie like this, I would hope that all the money goes to education and resources, because there probably will be one, and there probably will be one, and maybe I'm not saying there shouldn't be one. I think you have two movies that you have a couple movies there. I think Ray Rice's life and Janae and their whole story. I think that's a blockbuster hit. I think people want to know. I think they're an interesting couple, and how they're going to handle it on a go forward basis, and why shouldn't they be allowed to tell their story? So I would imagine, and who knows how it's going to work out, and then whether the NFL plays a role in that story, or whether it's the story of Roger Goodell. I think you're onto something. Am I surprised we didn't see it yet? I didn't think about it, but I won't be surprised if it doesn't happen soon.
Well,
I think it will.
Well, Law & Order did a Ron Artest. When Ron Artest ran into the stands in Detroit, they did kind of a play off of that, where the player ended up going and murdering the fan after the incident. That was an interesting one. One of the 7,000 Law and Order episodes that are out there right now, so it might be tough to find that specific episode.
I was going to say they had one with a concussion too. Did you see the one where the football player couldn't remember where he was, and they had one where the football player was, I think he was with a hooker or something like that, and it turned out that I forget who played him, but it turned out that he was. He wasn't really this bad guy. He just had dementia. So I guess the NFL is sharing, who knows how they seem to be crossing over and working together.
Well, what do you think? There should be, there might be a conspiracy out there that the NFL and all these leagues are having all these issues just so that they can have Law and Order fly out these stories. But which show do you think got more watered down over the years, Law and Order or CSI?
I could watch both of them. I have to tell you, I don't think, everyone likes SVU. I like the original Law and Order, like with I forget the guy's name. Yeah, I like nothing against. Yeah, I mean I know that SVU has this cult following, and I actually just met Dan Florek in New York at the Joe Torre charity event. Like I was there interviewing some of the people that were there. And so I like Law and Order a lot. So that's a tough question. I'm going to say Law and Order, but it doesn't bother me. So I don't know why you seem to think it's like a little bit overplayed or something. I can't get enough of. I love that.
I think CSI, once they brought in Ted Danson. I love Ted Danson, but you talk about really going out on a limb for a character on a show or for a cop. Ted Danson is it. That's a little bit of a stretch for me. But with Law and Order, I felt like the first 7 seasons or so, when it was like they had the 2 heavy set cops in the first 2 seasons with Chris Noth, and then Jared Orbach was great. Sam Waterston. I mean, there was it was a very well done show, and SVU has its cult following. I felt like they had the characters on that show were more interesting than the cops in regular Law and Order, though. Because you had Ice-T or whatever his name is, and Richard Belzer, both really entertaining guys, and then you got Elliot and whatever her name is. I can't remember.
Olivia. I see it. Her name's Olivia Benson.
You have far more interesting characters on the SVU, but I feel like the plots on regular Law and Order were better.
Yeah, I like them both. I like them both. It may be tougher for me to see the SVU. I definitely, I've always resisted. I don't now because I want to understand it, and the more I just got, it's just, I got an email from one of the attorneys for sports law. He sent me an email and he just said, I figured you might want to see this. And it was just, these rape statistics. I was like, wow, like I'm being, people are associated. So I definitely study it. I might have stayed away from SVU because I wanted to be entertained. I like the original Law and Order a lot, and I definitely, like I said, I mean, it's nothing against SVU because I like that as well. But if I had to choose between the two, I'm going with the original ones. With what is it, Lenny? I forget the guy's name. Like I loved it. The father from Dirty Dancing, right? Dirty Dancing, was he the father? Yeah, I like him.
Lenny.
I know he passed, but he was great.
Yeah, he had a great run on there. Yeah, Chris Noth, who went on to unfortunately be in Sex in the City. Benjamin Bratt kind of got his start, and then he turned it into going on to 24, which is the greatest show ever made. And then
how do you really feel?
Well, it's great in the sense that it's bad. It's not a good, the plots are so unrealistic. Putting together a plot like that in 24 hours is just genius. But back to the NFL. If you're joining a fantasy league, do you join, like, how many fantasy leagues are you in right now, or are you in any?
No, last year I was in one with, I went out to Vegas and did the draft and everything, and actually, I was in Vegas and did the draft, and this year I've been paying attention to, so I know a lot about fantasy and I pay attention to it, but I'm not in any league at the moment, and I kind of just promote those who are, big time into fantasy and stuff. So how about you? Like, are you really into fantasy? How about you with the leagues? What are you up to with fantasy?
I'm the exact opposite. I'm actually, the DraftKings thing is really up my alley of just 1 week leagues. But like regular fantasy football, it's 16 weeks. I can't do it. It's like I lose week 1, I check out. I can't. I don't set lineups. I get kicked out of leagues. So I wind up getting...
It's a lot of work, right?
It is a lot of work. And I pay $50 to get kicked out of a league, and then later on, once baseball starts, they say, hey, do you want to join our fantasy baseball league? And I'm like, you do remember that you kicked me out of your fantasy football league for not being able to set 16 lineups. You want me to set 162 lineups? You think that's going to work out for you? And me not get kicked out of this? So it's with fantasy, I like the idea. I'm just way too lazy and stupid to be able to hang in there for 16 weeks.
No, I think the daily, I totally understand. And I used to be this big anti-fantasy person, where it was like, my ex-boyfriend used to just be like waking up every Sunday and he was more concerned with, who he was trading and did he miss this and did he miss that. I was like, oh my God, it's so annoying watching football with you. Not only are you a Giant fan, but you're like, freaking out over all these things. Like, you stopped enjoying the game. It was frustrating. So I think the daily, I kind of like the less, I mean, I get it. A lot of these guys have been doing it for years and that's cool. But for me, I was always just like, oh God, you have to do all the stuff. And so, to diehard fantasy people, in fact, I'm doing an article about it now, so it'll be interesting. I'll be able to put your take in it. Yeah, I'm more of I'd rather do it where, at least, or just pick a league and let them run, it's a lot, but you've got your people listening right now that are saying, what are you, crazy? Fantasy's great. And it's like, okay.
Well, yeah, and you have to be staring at 2-3 different computer screens at once and 4 or 5 TVs. The fantasy football people, they mock the people that do, like World of Warcraft and stuff. I really don't see the difference in their lives on Sunday versus a World of Warcraft person staying up 8 hours to do whatever it is they do on World of Warcraft.
I love talking to you because it's great. It's just like, I know exactly how you feel about 24. It's the best show ever. And this World of Warcraft, it's like, what are you people, crazy? Seriously, you don't have a life.
Yeah. Well,
how
they have that. You're definitely right, and the fact that it is great talking to me. And
okay.
And the other thing is are we okay? So they now have this website app called Twitch where you can watch people who are playing video games. I wonder when we're going to get to the point where we're on that app, where people are on that app watching people play fantasy football, or how they set their lineups, how they're reacting to games.
That's a reality show right there. You have these great ideas for, not that I'm not saying, but have they even done that where they actually film one of the, have you seen the way the people dress, like at these conventions, when they go for their drafts and they're in Vegas or wherever they are, and they're dressed like, some people will come dressed like superheroes. like, I mean, we're talking like Comic-Con. Like, it's